Alrighty. You gents ready to hop into another book club?
I think so.
I was born ready.
Hello, boils and ghouls. Welcome to another book club episode. Today's tale comes from down under. What happens when a human falls into the depths of the underworld? Find out as we discuss the game Undertale. What's up, dudes?
Hey,
I don't even know anymore.
That was an interesting intro.
We're dealing with monsters, right? Like
we are dealing with monsters.
Okay.
It's like a
was gonna
monster.
sing that was it. I come from the land down under.
I just thought all of a sudden we were in October.
Yeah, I suppose it's a little more October-y, but I thought it would work out with the game that we were talking about today, which is Undertale. Quick little introduction about Undertale as we get going. Developed by Toby Fox. I don't know who they are, indie studio. And this game got a lot of acclaim. Like, a lot of people love this game. Self-published, I'm pretty sure. You can play it on the Switch, PlayStation, Xbox, Windows, and the PlayStation Vita, apparently. Released many moons ago, so 6 years ago, something like that. September of 2015. Yeah. It is a 2D like side-scrolling RPG that you play all by yourself. So it's on Game Pass, so you can play it there. Otherwise, it's about $15 or less on any of the other platforms if you are interested in playing the game. Would you guys like to hear about the game in 30 words or less?
I'd prefer the 15-minute cut, but you know.
The 15-minute cut. All right.
That's just me.
So there's this game, and it's got some gears,
spoilers,
and there was a
way.
war.
Yeah, lots of spoilers.
Oh, that's a good starter. We will be kind of dissecting the whole game, or good chunks of it. So you will get the beginning, you will get the end of the game.
So if you haven't played the game yet, you should have been playing with us while we were playing it.
Yep.
Also, it's 6 years old, so
and it's 6 years old. So
yeah,
the ship sinks.
Game. Sailed or sinks?
It sinks.
Okay, fair enough. So basically, long ago, two races ruled over Earth: humans, monsters, and then a war broke out. After battles, humans won, and then a bunch of magicians like sealed the monsters underground. Many years after the war, like a human child climbs up the mountain, discovers a hole, and falls into the hole. Which you start off like that little fall meeting one of the like darkest characters I've met in the beginning of a game.
I love Flowey.
So like this very gentle flower kind of like introduces you to the world, and the first thing he does is like try to kill you. He's like, oh hey, we're buddies. Oh, and then he's like, oh, time to die. So you've got to kind of deal with Flowey and then move along.
One quick question, since you brought it up, and I just want to ask this question. I knew about Flowey from other videos I'd seen through so many different services. Did anyone actually accept his friendship pellets?
Yes.
Yeah,
Did
I tried.
You?
Yeah.
Okay. I already knew to avoid it, so I was curious if
I was just listening. He was a nice flower. He said, your love is increased by the friendliness pellets. So I was like, perfect.
What's crazy, and we can get into it now or we can get into it later, like experience and love in the game, like EXP and love.
Oh, EXP and,
so messed up.
LV.
Yeah.
Can we take a step back first?
No.
What parents are letting their kids walk up mountains and fall down holes?
Well, if you don't if you're hanging out on the mountain, the kid like goes 10 feet away and there's a hole, it's probably dropping in. And what is the chances? Like, are you going to jump in after, or are you going to call the police and get a rope and do all those things, right?
And admit it, Matt. I mean, you've been a kid before. You're used to doing stupid shit.
Yeah.
I
hope so.
Yeah.
But I don't think I climbed up a mountain.
Hey, there's a mountain that supposedly has monsters in it. Sweet, let's go climb it.
Matt, you got to remember that this was a different time too. It was 2010X or 2001X, so that's way in the future. way in the future.
Parents were just a little less strict back then. You know,
all the monsters are gone. You don't need to worry anymore, right?
All I can think about is like me going, the kid's back on the mountain.
Oh, that's
anyways,
funny.
we were talking about love and EXP.
Yeah. So those are so basically, as you're dealing with Flowey, a mysterious woman comes in named Toriel, and she comes in and kicks some flower butt like a Power Ranger. She's like, whoa, right? And then takes you to her house where she tells you about, everything, and is kind of treating you as if you are, an adopted human child now, in the monster realm. She's like, oh, you're gonna stay here forever. And I was like,
it's creepy.
Okay.
I was like, cool. She's gonna make me butterscotch pie. I'm down.
Exactly. She had toys and
she was all set for it.
It was very comfy.
But basically, as you defeat monsters in the game, you gain more EXP and you gain more love. Those things are to level up, essentially. You get more hit points when you get those. You get more damage. All of your stats increase with that. The first fight that you actually get into is when you try and leave Toriel's house. You're like, hey, I'm going to go home because as cool as butterscotch pies are, I'm sure my parents are freaking out right now. So I'm going to go. And then she challenges you. And she's like, no, you can't go. You're not strong enough. And this is where things start, really, because you start to get decisions to make. And in the combat screens, you have fight, act, item, and mercy. So you get choices with every encounter that you're in on how you want to go about dealing with that encounter. Act typically has some sort of conversation piece, or even there were some weird situations where you could like buff a dude's armor and like take his clothes off.
You could try to hug hug a plane or something.
Yep. Or like act mysterious, and then they would change their impression of the world. And anyhow, so some actions led to the monsters saying, oh, you're not so bad. I don't need to fight you. Let's be friends. And then you could get through the combat that way. The other option was to fight your way through everything. Interested, did anybody save this fight? Like, did you guys work with Toriel? How did that work out?
I did not kill a single thing in the game.
You did pacifist?
I did pacifist all the way through.
Maybe we should start with that. I did pacifist too. Because a friendly little frog said, act through all the battles. Don't like kill stuff. So now I said that, but my first fight with Toriel, I didn't know what to do. I was like, I don't know what to do. It doesn't seem to be doing anything. So I ended up killing her.
Oh,
but I was like, I don't like that. I don't like that at all.
Yeah.
So I quit out because there's little save stars or whatever, right? So I was like, oh, it doesn't remember this.
Doesn't work that way.
But I went back in and it remembered, right? Now I was still able to get the pacifist ending, but it was just like, hey, we saw what you did. We can manipulate the world too.
Right.
I was the same way.
What levels did you guys end the game at? Just
0.
Yeah, whatever.
Start at 1.
Yeah, I was gonna say it was
then 1. Yeah, so then I ended at 1.
Yeah.
No, the only reason that I knew of the very start that you could take the pacifist route with Toriel is because I remember seeing it on a speed run at some point. That was like the only thing that I really remembered from that speed run. So, and what I noticed, I didn't notice this during the speed run, but what I did notice is that at a certain point while you're in the Toriel encounter, she can't kill you. So like once you get down to like 1 HP or something like that, she'll send out all those hearts or whatever her ammo is. It'll actually
friendliness pellets.
Separate. Yeah,
it'll separate around your heart while you're doing the encounter. I mean, I suppose it should. This game is very. I should probably describe this for people who haven't played the game yet. But when you're doing a proper fight, or when you're doing the fights in Undertale, it's not like a typical RPG. You can do an attack, but of course it's not like like your turn-based RPG where you would select like a different type of magic or a type of attack or something like that. The combat is essentially done through as like what is almost like a bullet hell game, like a little mini game. You get a little heart
there's
in the
a
middle.
bunch of mini games.
Yeah, you get a little heart in the middle of your screen, and then you use like the, depending on what you're playing on, use like the arrow keys or something like that to move around, and you have to dodge a bunch of stuff that flies all over the screen. And then if you get hit by it, you take damage, and then of course when you reach 0, you die. So with that in context, yeah, at a certain point, Toriel can't touch you. I mean, you can drift your way into the hearts or into her bullets, and then they just kind of dissipate and go away.
So back to the path we went, I straight murdered her. It was the first of a few. I actually went what's called the neutral path, and it's a very interesting end of the game if you go that route. But we can get into it when we do get there.
A little bit of background. Yeah, I guess there's 3 endings, right? We've already mentioned pacifist, neutral, and genocide, where you just murder.
Murder everything.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, really interesting setup for a game. RPG, everything. It's got puzzles throughout the different areas that you walk through. And you kind of, go through them pretty easily for the most part. I didn't think the puzzles were too hard. They hold your hand through a lot of them.
Yeah.
In a very comedic way. But those mini games were probably the hardest part of this game. It was, some of those were brutal.
The game itself was mostly like when you weren't in those battles, I should say the main battles, right? Because even to me, going the pacifist route, the little minor people that you'd run across were pretty easy. It was just a matter of, which was kind of unique. You never really came across the same monsters more than a few times, and there was so many unique monsters that you came across it just kept it fresh. But all the kind of the fun thing was like acting through that and finding out what you say or what you do to get them to be able to spare them, right? Which is once you act enough and you get them to a certain point, your mercy button, you can go in there and there's a spare option. But yeah, like that and the rest, like 95% of the game was to me like a cakewalk. Those boss battles are what kicked my ass.
Yeah.
Especially doing the pacifist route, because so many of them, as you guys can attest to, usually you knew when I was fighting one because I'd comment on our Slack about how pissed I was, but there was no real easy way to kind of figure out. So after 5 or 6 tries, I'll be honest, about 2 of the bosses I did go out to a guide, because I'm like, I don't know what like I'm doing, right? One of them was like, one of the fights, they even keep repeating their same dialogue to trick you, right? Because you're like, oh, well, maybe there's something else I need to do. Well, no, you just need to do it like, I think it was the spider fight. You have to do it like 17 times or something insane like that, right? And the dialogue doesn't change to give you kind of that little tip, like, hey, there's another way or another action you need to do to continue this and move on to where you can get them to spare them.
That was not an easy fight either. Like trying to last I think it was like 15-ish rounds that you had to go through, 14, 17, somewhere in there. That was one of the hardest fights in the game for me. I was like, are you kidding?
Dude. Oh man, like I'm not gonna lie. Undyne wrecked my day.
Oh my god,
dude.
that took me forever.
That fight busted my ass so many times just because like I really didn't have like any items going into that fight. Didn't have any food or anything like that. I literally just went in 20 HP and then we're ready to rock. And it was getting to the point where it was getting very frustrating. There's a lot of trial and error involved. Yeah. What I did notice about some of those boss fights though, is that like, as I got through more boss fights, this became a little bit more obvious, is that like a lot of it is very scripted and you have to go through this almost the same number of of turns every single time. And no matter really what you do, it doesn't change the fight a whole lot other than like maybe, with the Undyne fight, it makes, you can either make the bullets come in a little bit faster, or you can reduce the amount that they, that you challenge to make them go faster.
I actually found really that making the bullets go faster made it easier.
Really?
Now, again, I was level 7 when I finished this, so I killed plenty. But I could take the hits and then blink through the rest. So when the arrows, so this particular mini game, it was like spears and arrows that were coming at you from different directions.
Sure.
When they got to a point to where they were doing like that, it would point one way but flip around the thing
yellow
and jump
ones.
in.
Yeah.
I could actually just take one of them and then tank through like 4 because of how fast they're going. I've got the blinking. Once you take damage, you can't take damage for like a second. At a certain point, you actually get an item that makes that blinking take longer, or you have an elongated one if you picked up the item and equipped it. So I had just like mad blinkies. It was just like, bloop, I'm going to hang out through this fight. But Undyne was also stupid hard.
It was such a brutal fight.
Did you guys know, like, it took me, again, if I spent more than like 20 minutes trying to figure something out, I didn't have the patience to just continue hammer away doing the same thing. But with Undyne, did you know, like, if you do a couple of those attacks, it gave a flee option? So you could run away?
Yeah.
Okay. It was supposed to be.
That's how
you're supposed to run.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. It sounded, the way you guys were like, it just kept battling.
Nope. If you're taking the pacifist.
It's the repetitiveness of it. Like you get a little bit of ways away, and then she catches up with you, and you have to do it all over again, and you're just like, oh my god. I am going to admit, in the Snowden area, there was one puzzle that took me forever to figure out, and I felt so stupid that once I realized what it is. It's the one that ends up you have to spiral in on it. It's on the ice. And
okay. Yeah.
I don't know why it took me forever to figure it out, but when I finally solved it, I'm just like, oh my god!
You don't play enough Legend of Zelda.
No, I never played Legend of Zelda.
That was a walk. I know. It was a walk in the park for that. I was just like, I'll jump on this line and pew, pew,
yeah.
I have no clue.
For me, I just had to stare at it for like a minute just to kind of like, okay, follow my path. Yep, that's it. And then I just hopped in.
Went enough. I just went like a bull. Like I will figure this out.
So it's funny that you were impatient on the puzzles. I was impatient on the fights, and that's typically when I hit that point, Matt, where I was like, okay, what am I doing wrong? I can't deal with this person in the way I'm trying. And it could have been, more. I didn't want to do the whole guide aspect on this one. I wanted to like encounter everything as I would deal with the situation. I got annoyed and just killed him. I was like, yep, I can't beat you. You're done. We'll just try and take you out. With Undyne, I actually could not kill her faster than I got away from her, because as soon as it was the red heart, I was like, flee. As I have courage, I can flee out of this. She still had like a quarter health by the time I was able to get through into the next area. So
yeah, my thing too was like, I didn't feel too terrible like for the few bosses that I did go out and read a guide on, because this is kind of a complaint but not really a big one, is what do you guys call it, the little boxes, the whatever that mechanic is,
mini game.
The little mini game you play. They're all so different, and there's so much RNG involved with the attacks. There was still like, it's like, I still have to dodge these things, right? I have to, especially like when you're fighting Asgore, right? Those things explode, and it's like you're trying to find the safe spots on the screen or dodge them fast enough, so there's still a lot of randomness to it that
they were patterned. I felt like they were
some
patterned.
of them were.
Some of them were, not all.
Yeah,
but sometimes, it was just, it could still be challenging for the few bosses that I did look up a guide for, because it was, again, you had to dodge it. You had to have, especially as pacifist, we only had 20 health the whole time, so you get a couple hits, and a few of those attacks, like most of those little mini games, you only maybe get hit once, but there was a few of the mini games for the bosses where you could get stacked up. Right. I'd be like, I'm at 8 health. I'm not going to use a health potion this time. And then they do one of their attacks and I get hit like 5 times because I'm not good enough to dodge or whatever. Right. And then now I got to restart the fight.
So really quickly, one of the things, we talked about the different runs that you can do, the pacifist, the neutral, and the genocide. The reason that those are there is because after the humans locked the monsters into the cave or into the underworld, there's a prophecy of sorts that if you collect enough human souls as a monster, you can break that barrier. And that's what they were trying to do. You were the final soul that they needed to break through the barrier. So you had, Asgore is the king of this area. He had a bunch of his like lackeys trying to kill you or capture you so he could take your soul and inevitably break that barrier. You guys want to get into why he was so angry, or do you want to
Yeah.
save that for later?
It's a
Let's just-
prequel
let's
to
go through
Mortal
the-
Kombat.
Yeah, let's go finish up with the story stuff, and then we can get more into the nitty
Sure,
gritty.
sure.
By the way, really quickly, it's in fact called a bullet board. I knew it had a
bullet
special
board?
name. I just pulled it up really quick.
Oh,
Yeah.
good to know.
That's neat.
Mhm.
So basically, before all of the war and chaos and things, Asgore had a child named Azrael, and Azrael ended up getting like a stepbrother, which is human essentially. And the human died while living in that underworld, and so
He got
Azrael,
sick.
Azrael brought the child, like his brother, basically back to the surface after absorbing the soul, and walked through it and said, brought him to his village where he enjoyed a certain set of like yellow flowers. When he brought the human back to the human world, the humans freaked out and essentially killed Azrael. They stabbed him, hit him, did whatever because they thought he was a monster that killed the human. And Azrael came back to the underworld and basically died. So in a single day, Asgore lost both of his kids. Do we want to go into the Queen spoiler yet, or should we wait for like the Asgore fight?
Yeah, we'll wait.
Yeah.
Hold
okay.
that off till the end.
Sure.
Yeah.
So essentially, that's what happened, and now Asgore is filled with rage and wants to get back to being able to get to the human world and rule both worlds as Super Monster King. And that's why everyone is trying to kill you. So, and everyone is a great cast of characters. Everyone but Alphys. I actually really did not like that section.
It really annoyed me, like it was her character, but it really annoyed me that she just kept talking.
Yeah, she was talking.
Yeah, it was just like, let me do this, like
Yeah.
let me go to my mission, and you're just constantly calling me on the cell phone.
Yeah, it was like every fourth step in some of those areas was another phone call of like 6 pages of dialogue, and I'm like, come on.
She's just insecure. It's okay.
Yeah,
Well,
she just needed a friend.
Yeah.
She had one. She built one.
I really
see what happened.
I really enjoyed Sans. I think this is probably fan favorites.
I mean,
but Sans,
yeah.
Yeah,
and
he's the
Papyrus,
meme.
Yeah.
both of those were just a lot. I mean, Sans was just always just like dad jokes and puns, and my type of guy or skeleton.
I actually laughed pretty good at the puns at the end of the game when he was talking about the knocking through the door to talk about the different jokes. I laughed at both of them. I was like, yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
So that's good. So Sans is the first real like other thing that you meet other than Toriel and Flowey, and he kind of like warns you that his brother is there and is trying to trap humans. So you get a little bit of a like, hey, my brother is not very good at stuff, but he's trying. And enter Papyrus. Like, I think this was my
Papyrus.
favorite character
Yeah,
personally.
I loved Papyrus.
Did you guys date Papyrus?
I did, yeah.
Of course, yes.
Mike,
That
did
was
you
the
did you
best
kill
part.
Papyrus?
No, I didn't. No, I actually as soon as I killed Toriel, I felt bad. And I was like, I should probably try and like not kill as many as I could. And then Papyrus just made me laugh. Like everything he did, I was just like, you're a great character.
what was his outfit? Like he
The
dressed
cool
up
dude?
for something,
Yeah.
and then and then Sans is like, yeah, now he just keeps wearing it because
He never took it
looks
off.
he never took it off.
I like later on in the game when he's posting pictures of himself on like the social media for the underworld. Like he has a picture of himself with like taped on biceps so that he looks stronger, and his biceps have sunglasses. I was like, that's great. It's just a really good character.
Mhm.
So Papyrus is obsessed with becoming part of like the royal guard. And if he catches a human, he's likely to get promoted to that royal guard position. And that's where you get into a lot of puzzles with him, where he thinks he's going to be devious and destroy you with puzzles. And then Sans helps you through some of them. Papyrus also doesn't do some of them right, which was hilarious. That one with the long instructions. Do you guys remember that one with
Right.
like and then he just didn't
With the
even turn it
colors?
on.
Basically the disco floor. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a lot of rules. Why don't you come over here and look at them, and then you can turn it on when you're ready. I was like, okay.
I like how they bring that back later in the game too.
Yeah. Were you able to get through it?
Hell no.
No.
I couldn't remember that.
Yeah, no, I failed there too. But the papyrus fight, actually, I died quite a bit here. I was surprised after, kind of a cakewalk through the rest of the area. I was like, holy crap, this is actually kind of difficult.
Yeah, that was the first one that was kind of like, oh, maybe this might not be as easy as I was thinking it was going to be. Yeah, Papyrus was a kind of a beast to fight.
Yeah, that was kind of, obviously I mentioned I killed Toriel and I was like, I don't like this, and I went back. Papyrus was the first one I did look up a guide to, because it was just, I couldn't figure it out, but it was also the first one that kind of trained me to really do a better job of paying attention to a lot of the little cues, and acting. That for me, that's really where it sunk home. Like, if I'm, gonna do this and not murder everybody, I'm got to pay attention to all this stuff. So, I guess I cheated and looked up a guide on it, but I mean, again, it was also kind of a little bit of a tutorial too. Like, hey, you gotta, you gotta pay a little bit more attention, or just murder things. But
there was a lot of pieces.
I was listening to a nice little frog that I met at the start of the game that said, "Don't kill people. You should act through the battles." So
it's a smart frog.
If a frog is talking to you and gives you instructions, you should probably listen.
Just do it.
I followed Papyrus's character, and that's how I kind of knew what to do in the fight, because they actually gave him a lot of character. Like, as you're reading through what he's saying to you, and all the little things that he does, you can tell that he's actually a really genuinely good monster that just wants a friend and wants to be, appreciated and important. So I think that's cool. Did you guys eat the spaghetti, or did you leave the spaghetti?
I ate the spaghetti.
I don't think I did. No.
Wasn't it frozen? Was that the one in Snowden?
No, when you're on the date, he makes you spaghetti, and then you have the choice of eating it or not. And so if you eat it, you basically just like make a sour face, and then he's just like, you're so expressive. You must love it. And it's like,
I did. Yeah, and like on the dates, I did everything like nice and right. So yeah, I would have eaten it, but
I'm sorry, I don't love you. that whole thing all the way up until that. But yeah, so all of us did a pacifist with him. That's cool.
How could you be aggressive against him?
He was so sweet.
Because he talks too much.
That's true. The next one that you kind of run into was, we've already talked about a bunch, was Undyne. And it was like the head of the Royal Guard. She's just a badass fish person with like a trident.
Very admired by a lot of the monster constituents.
Yeah,
indeed.
Did that little monster, the kid monster, ever get a name? I guess I never went to look at it. The one that was like, "Oh, I love Undyne. He's so cool. I want to meet him." And then every time he'd run away from you, he would just fall on his face.
What? Yeah. He has a name. I just cannot remember what it is.
I must have missed it.
I don't remember. Yeah, that was a tough fight. Anything else to cover on Undyne? Otherwise, did anybody go back and befriend her? Because I know, like, you can give her a cup of water, but there's another step beyond that I didn't do. I just skipped it, which played into my ending.
I did not.
For the pacifist ending, you do have to.
You need to. Yeah.
So I did do that. She gets you a letter that you take to Alphys.
And what does that letter do?
That gets you into another dating simulator. Because it's a love letter. And it's not, there's no name on it. So Alphys, whatever, thinks it's you.
Oh,
so
God.
then you go on a date.
More Alphys talking. Yeah. I would have been sad.
That's the part that I missed. I didn't do, so I gave Undyne the water, but I didn't go back and befriend her. So that's what was reflected on the end of my ending.
After that fight, I was just like, splash, I'm done. We're not talking anymore.
Yeah.
I tried, there was another monster there too. I tried giving the water to, and it didn't want to take it.
Over by like the stand where Sans was hanging out.
No, right where the water thing was. It's like it was right below it. I don't remember if that was there when you. I ended up trying to take the water through to the next stand or the next map area. And then it's like, oh, the map just, or the water just, evaporated, right? And I'm like, okay, well, I went back and then there was another little monster there. There wasn't anything too exciting about it, but.
So Alphys created a killer robot to annihilate you as a person. What were there, 3, 4 fights to do with Metaton?
There's like 4, I think.
4?
Felt like a million.
Yeah, you do the first one. I don't remember. I can't.
The
first
trivia?
one's like the first one is a trivia show.
Yeah.
Trivia.
Did you see Alphys doing the letters for like which one it was?
Yeah.
I didn't catch that until I lost like half of my health. I was like, what is this?
I like the really long one.
I realized there had to be
Right.
some type of cheat to it because that's the game always gives you some type of clue on how to survive something.
Yep.
And I saw her start doing stuff with her hands. I'm like, oh, okay. I see what's
That
happening.
looks like a letter.
Yeah.
Well, most of the ones I was able to get quick enough. But then it
the
was like
early
some of the
ones were
harder ones. It
really
was like,
easy.
you were, I think, supposed to mess up on the really, what was the really long one asking about 2 trains?
About the train question, the train math question. Yeah.
I couldn't even read it in time. I was like, what?
Right.
Yeah, he's like halfway through. I was like, whatever, I'll just pick one. I just picked. So maybe that's where Alphys was doing the letter. But
yeah, funny story about the cooking fight because I think that was the second fight. Was the cooking show?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I was playing the game super late, and I fell asleep playing that battle. I woke up, and I had beaten the second battle. I don't know what happened. I stayed still. I didn't move. It must have just been I had enough hit points to like not die. But I got through to the end of it where you dismiss the battle or get through it. It was I don't know.
That's the one where
I
like
still don't know.
You have the jetpack. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to get.
And you have to like fly through. Yeah, I saw part of it. That's where I fell asleep, and I don't know. I have no idea what happened. So
you must not have. You fell asleep during the jetpack.
Yeah.
That's I'll say essentially the end. So yeah, you must have had enough health, like you said,
just to
get all the way to the top.
Yeah.
And then all the talking and stuff.
Yeah, no, I passed out through that, and I woke up to like the conversation part, and I was like, I'll just get through this because maybe it'll save, and it did. So
yeah, no, you didn't really miss anything. You got to the top, so
right. And then the third fight with him, I'm trying to remember if it was third, like if there was one between the.
I pulled up some stuff here. It was the bombs.
Oh God, that was
you
dumb.
had to defuse the bombs.
There's a dog and it's a bomb.
Everything here is a bomb.
Yeah.
Yep.
That was pretty good too.
I like how the dogs had like a little like its tail was like the fuse.
The fuse, yeah. So the last fight with Metaton is actually where you really can, conclude things. I had a heck of a time with this one too. I think I died 4 or 5 times, maybe 6, and that's when I decided to just annihilate him too. I was like, I'm done. You're over, Metaton.
Oh man.
But I didn't beat him in time. Like doing that got me through what the objective was. So
that was probably the Metaton fight was probably my most favorite fight out of the entire game. I don't know what it was like.
Was it because he was so pretty?
Yes, and also the music was great.
Oh
the whole theme of it was just so fun. Where you're on like a TV show and you're trying to like boost the show's ratings and all that by being violent or by bragging about your, being able to not be hit by stuff. Yeah, like I loved that fight. I thought that was super fun, especially during the second phase of it, where you're like where you're doing part of the like the TV ratings and all that. I thought that was amazingly fun.
I got
I'm like one of the like I hated being in the battle, but like the idea, the whole idea of the battle is really cool to think about. But yeah, the whole time I'm playing, I'm like, screw this guy. Like I hate this.
Yeah.
Stupid legs that are going in and out. It could never time it just right.
I went back after. Did you know you could shoot the legs, Matt?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I went back after to look at it and see, what I could do to beat him because I didn't realize what I thought it was because I hit 10,000 for the ratings. But there are levels to it. Did anybody hit 12,000?
No.
Okay.
Not before I ended up finishing
That's
the fight.
if you have like glam burgers, which I had a bunch of. Those gave like
500.
Was that like a ton?
Yeah.
So I actually
They give you
maxed out.
500.
You got it up to the 12,000.
Yeah, but I got far enough too where I think I blew off his arms or something.
Okay. Yeah, if you can do that,
Like I partially destroyed him.
If you can do that before he blows apart, hit that 12,000. I don't know if it's possible. You can end the fight that way too. But otherwise, after you blow off all of his limbs, you have to hit 10K for the ratings for it to kick you to the next thing. So that was neat. I boasted a lot and got lucky with a bunch of the bombs. So like it was just the little tiny
The dodge, yeah, the
bullet map, and I was like whoop 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 whoop. Yeah, so that was super nice. But
It was a good fight.
It was a lot of fun. I think I got him down to like a quarter health before I hit that 10,000 mark. So almost got another one. After Metaton, it's a pretty straightforward shot into like this area that looks a lot like the first ruins that you were in. And you basically go straight to Asgore, who happens to be the king of monsters, where he tells you the whole story about, why he's trying to get souls, and actually feels bad that he's doing it. Like there's remorse in the conversation.
Yeah, he doesn't want to kill you.
The monsters just don't want to be stuck underground anymore, right? That's just their big thing. It's like they want to get out. They're not like I guess until a certain point they weren't like, let me get out and murder everybody. It's just they don't want to be stuck underground anymore. So he's like, I don't want to do this, but it's the only way to get through the magic barrier into the upper world, top land,
Earth crust,
upper.
I don't know. So he gives you the whole backstory, and this is where the aha moment happened for me. Like I looked at him and I was like, holy crap, you look a lot like Toriel. Holy crap. And then he tells you like his wife like couldn't handle his decision and like left forever, and I was like, I killed your wife. Like the whole time it was in the back of my head, like, I just annihilated your wife. I am so sorry, dude, and you're such a nice guy. Like everything you loved is now dead.
Well, that's I like that. Like a lot of the monsters as you're working through the world are like, yeah, Asgore's a great dude. He's super nice. He's super cool.
I didn't believe it. I thought it was gonna be like he was gonna be, kind of a jerk, but the whole time
they weren't lying.
No.
Yeah, he is super nice. He's super chill.
The nicest.
He just needed your soul so he could get through the barrier.
And that fight was also pretty interesting because that was one of the fights that you basically had to attack him to win.
Yeah.
Yes.
You couldn't just like talk your way out of it and spare him until like after you had quote defeated him. So you had to basically use your attack all the way until he hits, I think, zero
Pretty
HP.
Close to zero, yeah.
Yeah. And then you have the choice of sparing him or, of course, killing him. Like he basically says to kill him, he says, kill me so that you can escape this place and we can lock the door behind us and all that. Or you can spare him and then you get the alternate ending to that.
So what happened when you guys spared the king?
You have to fight Flowey.
Sure.
You spare him like a million times, right? Wasn't that that fight? You like literally had to be like, no, I'm not gonna kill you, dude.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just trying to get home.
Right. And that happens a couple of times during the course of the game, where you have to just keep mashing the spare button and then they'll be like, what? Why are you doing this? I don't understand why you're doing this.
So how did Flowey come into the picture?
So after you spare him, Asgore has this little bit of a monologue about how humans and monsters living together, yada yada yada, and then Flowey just kind of like pops into the picture, and then he comes and kills Asgore.
Yeah.
Okay, so
that's what I
he
had
does
happen.
kill.
And he gets all the souls at that point.
Yeah,
I was wondering if that was the same situation because like he just pops in as like murder. I was like, oh no. I didn't know if that was specific to a different run or if that was just the
so you killed Asgore, and he still came in.
I didn't. I actually spared him at the end.
But he came in and murdered
I only
Asgore.
had to spare him once though, I'm pretty sure. I was just like, you're spared. And then the flower came and was like, ha.
Did you spare the flower or did you kill him?
I spared the flower also.
I did too.
Yep.
And that was the one where you had to mash spare like a whole bunch of times.
Like a lot.
That was the hardest one to choose spare on. I was
Mhm.
really hovering over the
Right.
deciding to kill it. I'm not
Yeah.
little turd.
Mm-hmm.
So
Although that
how-
fight was pretty funny. Like they did a lot of stuff with the Flowey fight that just was like really just to screw with the player. Like the first thing
Yeah.
that happens is like Flowey comes in, murders Asgore, says, ha ha ha, you're an idiot, it's kill or be killed. And then your game just like shuts off. And then
There's
you're like,
there's a
oh,
point where
okay.
it's like when you load back, because it on the Xbox it has you sign in every time you load the game, and it kept saying, hey, you need to sign in. You sign in, and it was like, was at one point you get loaded into like save is deleted or something like that. Files, it's corrupt.
Your save has been deleted. Don't even try to go back. How did you guys do with the Flowey fight? That was so damn hard to start with.
Well, it's supposed to be. Yeah.
God.
He's supposed, like, as far as I could tell, that fight doesn't seem like a fight that you're supposed to lose, because you're supposed to just take a ridiculous amount of damage, because Flowey's essentially just cheating. He's, he even says it, right? He's like, oh, I can manipulate the world and I can do this. And he's, quote, loading your old file saves and things like that. And, regenerating you so that he could keep killing you over and over and over again. And
I mean, something we kind of missed before the Asgore fight, and kind of probably during what the Flowey fight is, really when you learn about love, XP, and
that's a really important. Yeah, that's a really important part,
because that all really fits into what's going on as far as the narrative with that stuff. So
towards the end of the game, right before the Asgore fight, you go and talk to Sans one last time, and throughout the whole game, you talk to Sans a whole bunch, and he kind of gives you some insight into the world and into how people react and behave and all that, and kind of reinforces the themes of like non-violence, non-killing, all that sort of stuff. And then at the end of the game, you stand before Sans, and then he basically
judges you.
He casts judgment upon you. And so he kind of lectures you a little bit about the choices that you've made, and if you've killed people or if you haven't killed people or whatever. I thought that was really interesting, that it really does change depending on how many people you kill and who you kill and all that.
But I just like that he's like, you gain EXP for killing people in this world, so we'll see how you did. By the way, EXP stands for execution points.
Yep.
So not a good thing, right?
Right.
And then what was it? The love was like, oh, and
LV
we'll judge
is love. Yep.
It's level of violence.
Yep.
So that's really where you were. Where which conversation is it where you figure out like the determination point? I'm trying to remember where that was introduced, because I think that's why that Flowey fight was, again, that really drove home that you as I guess you don't know it at that point, but Frisk you're determined, you as the player determined to get through this.
I was not. I was very, I'm just going to fight my way through if I have to. The patience ran out pretty quick sometimes.
You were determined. You were determined to end it quickly.
Yeah.
Yep.
I was determined to end it. And I think I gave enough chances, in my opinion. Like, all right, I tried. You want to play ball? Then we're going to play bat. It's fine.
So I mean, overall, what did you guys think? We can kind of go and do kind of our own personal thoughts and opinions about Undertale. We just kind of went through the general gist of the game,
but we didn't get through the ending.
So at the end, you kill.
We got to Mike's ending.
Well, that wasn't even
you
my
guys
ending.
did it, but there was a whole nother chapter, a whole other level with the pacifist.
So
ending.
let me tell you what happens when you get into. You guys can get into the pacifist ending here in a second. But basically, my ending was I tell the flower, "Hey, I forgive you, bro." He's like, "Why would you do that?" And I'm like, "Cause I've learned my lesson, and I don't want to be a murderer anymore." And he's like, "Hey, I'm gonna just delete everything, and you can start the game over and show me what you mean." So basically, it was, you have to go prove yourself now, please. Otherwise, I don't believe you.
It's for if you didn't know it, that was the hint to, hey, there's a way to get through this without murdering anybody.
Yep. I disagree, but some people say it's possible. So what happens to the pacifism ending?
What was it? You beat Flowey, and you're like, yeah, we'll be best friends. I'm not going to hurt you. And then you go through the magic gate, and for me, it was kind of like that, like bittersweet ending, right? It's like, oh, you made it through, but all your friends, you know, you can't talk to them, you can't see them again. And how did it happen? It was that's like the end of the game. But if you load up the game again, that's when it kind of hints at, hey, you can kind of continue on. There's a little extra bit to it, and you get put back to, was it the core? Did you guys actually do this part? I'm trying to remember where it was.
No,
I wasn't given this option, Matt.
You get back. I'm trying to remember where you started though. I think you started back like in the throne room area, and you get a call from. It was Sans. I think it was Sans, and he says, "Hey, you should go talk to Undyne," and that's where that kicks off. Where I think you can do it beforehand. I think if you didn't go visit Undyne before beating Asgore, you can get this letter from him, right? But for me, I hadn't gone back to Undyne's house to chat with him, right? But if you go back, you find out that Undyne is actually teaching Papyrus how to cook. That's where his cooking skills came from. And then you help, or Undyne trains you on how to cook, which is all like violent. It's like bashing things, and yeah, you set the house on fire. It's a good time. But he gives you this letter, and you go to talk to. It kind of mentioned earlier. You give it to Alphys, and Alphys thinks it's you, right? So you guys go on a date, and you find out that Alphys likes Undyne, and you kind of go through a whole situation. You kind of get them to where Undyne and Papyrus are going to help Alphys gain her confidence back, right, and all that stuff. But she also drops a little hint like, hey, there's another like room you can go check out my laboratory. Am I the only one that did this? I don't want to keep talking to other people.
Probably.
No, yeah,
Oh, really?
keep going.
Yeah, go
I
for
didn't.
it.
I didn't continue the game after I'd finished it.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
So you go back into the laboratory, and you find out that Alphys was like, she was the royal scientist.
Yeah.
And she was tasked to figure out how to get souls to get through this portal without humans, right? Because they always had to wait for these humans to come down, right? Fall down, right? And there was like some dead or dying monsters that basically some like mad scientist shit she was doing on these things, right? Trying to inject souls into them so they could extract it and use those. Because when a monster dies, the soul just goes like they don't have a soul. I'm trying to remember.
No, they
No,
basically
the soul just goes away.
disintegrate.
Yep.
Yeah.
They turn into dust.
Where the humans, that's kind of they have a soul that kind of continues on, right? When they die, and you end up fighting these like, was it 5 or 6 of these like messed up monsters, and they're all these weird fights, right? There was one like weird monster where, remember those like boomerang things that came through?
Yes.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
This one, like, it was the same type of monster, but it was all again messed up, dismembered and all gross, right? And the little boomerang things, they just like sat at the bottom of your little square window. They didn't do anything, right? These weren't hard fights. They were just, again, these messed up monsters. But yeah, so I mean, you find out that's what Alfie was doing. That's where she lost a lot of her what I was just saying, completely blanking. She's insecure, right? So she became very insecure through all this and second guessing herself, and she's a terrible person, right? But it's also where you find out that you start getting hints about the first human that dropped down, the one that was friends with Azrael. And you even find VHS tapes where you can watch, but surprise, each one you watch, the person forgot the lens cover, right? So it's just black, and you get the text of what's going on, right? And they're talking about Matt, right? When you start the game, you put in a name, right? So I put in my name, right, Matt. So I was talking about Matt.
Gotcha.
And the way it's presented, I'm going, this is talking like it's not me, the person that's there, right? And the person I'm controlling.
Yep.
And to me, it's where you start getting this first hint that, and if you look back throughout the game, a lot of people kind of recognize you, but not recognize you. If you notice when they talk to you, they're like, hey, yeah, you kind of, we kind of know you, but you're a little different. Something's a little off, right? Basically, you find out the first human was Matt, and you're actually this character named Frisk. So yeah, it's pretty crazy. And that's where my screenshots came of Flowey saying Matt's a terrible person, because you know, Matt came up with this idea of harvesting these souls from other humans, right? Because I don't think that was like the main way through, but that was one way that they came up. So, you know, Matt hated people, so kill people, get their souls, and get through this magical door to get back to his world. So again, that's why Matt hates humanity and Matt's a terrible person. Basically, that's dialogue you have with Flowey whenever you chat with him and you find out about this Matt guy. So
it's not really Flowey though, right?
Yeah, it's Azrael Dreamer, whatever, the son of Asgore and Toriel. So yeah, which was,
so you kind of find out that Azrael is the flower, is you know, Flowey. So
yeah, because it came back, it died, its ashes went into the ground, and it kind of spawned into,
it became Flowey,
a flower.
It's
which then
cool.
Again, that's not the end. You find all that and you end up going back and fighting Azrael. So you got, you know, there's a whole nother boss battle after Asgore and Flowey. So you start this fight, and all your friends come in, all the people you've loved and saved along the way, right? And they come in, they're like, we're not going to do this, right? We like you, Azrael, like, don't do this, you know, but he's all set on killing you and ending this, right? Taking complete control and going out and taking over the top side, up, whatever we call it, upper world, top world,
Overworld.
Yeah, whatever,
Overworld.
right?
Yeah.
So you end up fighting him. Oh, sorry, he like kind of kidnaps all your friends, right? And through this, it's another crazy, insane fight. You should at least look it up if you're not going to go back. And Mike, I guess you'd have to play a whole new playthrough as a pacifist.
No, it's gone.
But you go through and you get to a point where, you know, you're fighting him, and you get to a point where you have to kind of keep forgiving him, right? And at the end, you know, he's all like super, like, I don't know why you're doing this. You know, you should just kill me. I'm a terrible person. But yeah, at least I saved him. And a fun little thing is, along the way, you have to save your friend's souls that he captured. So that's where,
they're not really your friends. They're like your human souls. Or are you talking about
no,
actually your
like
friends?
He like
Like
Sans,
Papyrus. Oh, really?
Undyne, Toriel, Alphys, like they all came in again. They're like, we're not gonna, because the start of the fight with Azrael, he just murders you, like you die, but then your little heart breaks apart. And then again, this is where a lot of that determination side of the story comes in. Your heart breaks apart, and then it goes back in, and then you're back in the fight, and you literally continue doing that until, you know, you start kind of turning the tides with Azrael. So but yeah, you wake up, assuming you saved all your friends, they're all there, they're all excited. And a fun little Easter egg, I honestly didn't know this until after I was reading a little bit of the story afterwards. If you literally, from the magical gate, the end, you know, where you fight Asgore, that's where you kind of like wake up after the Azrael fight. If you walk all the way back to the very start of the game, to the ruins, little Azrael's there as little, like a kid side, whatever his kid version is. So, and you can have a whole conversation with him. And again, that's where you kind of continue to forgive him, or at least I did. So
Sure.
you have a nice little hug, you hug out, and then you go back through the portal. And again, at that point, you gain the power to destroy the gate, and everybody goes through. It's all a little happy monster ending. All your monsters go through. I have a picture of it. I'll throw it up on Instagram. But you're all there staring at the sunset. They're like, you know, Sans is like so excited, like the sun or Papyrus. And yeah, it's pretty cool. It's pretty exciting. It's one of those feel good endings.
A very feels good ending.
Yeah.
So as you were talking, it kind of prompted me. I forgot there was like story behind, you know, finishing Flowey and letting him go. You get a phone call from Papyrus, and he's like, or no, you get a phone call from Sans, and he's talking to you for a little bit, and Papyrus comes in, and he's like, hey, who are you talking to? And he's like, oh, the human. And he's like, oh, let me talk to him. So he starts to tell you what's happened since you've kind of, you know, been away, because you go through you absorb the souls and go through the thing as well. So you're now on the other side by yourself, no friends, nothing. But you the phone call, and apparently Undyne is now the new king or queen, essentially, and is on a murdering spree, wants to kill everything, and is trying to find a way to come hunt you down on the other side. So that is now the new goal. But I feel like I got the best possible ending because Papyrus got a special royal position, and that's what it's actually called. That's what the position is called. Special royal position. Yeah. So he's like, thank you so much. You have made me feel like the most important person or monster, ever. You really, really helped me out. So come see me sometime. I mean, Undyne will kill you, but at least you'll get to see me again. So that's the best ending because I fulfilled everything Papyrus needed.
Yeah.
So
I love the writing in this game. Like, whenever it came to like a lot of those jokes, those puns, just the dialogue. Again, Alfie's was a little, as we said, annoying, but like, it was all just this goofy monsters. They're just having a good time. They want you to, go see Asgore or, whatever.
Yep.
Or eat spaghetti or whatever.
So this was one of my picks for the game. And overall, I would suggest it if you have the patience to deal with it. It's a lot of fun to take your time through and don't really rush it. There were a couple spots where, I fell asleep or rushed it. But I think if you have that patience, it's really worth just a playthrough. And this didn't get all the, critical acclaim that it got for being a bad game. It's a good amount of fun. And I really think that the boss fights, like I was looking forward to the next boss fight just so that I could play those little, bullet games. It was way fun in that aspect. Some of the wandering aspects to it were like, okay, this just feels like filler. But there was story elements that you could pick up on through there. So it wasn't terrible, but I'd recommend it. I think it was a fun time.
Did you guys talk to the snowman in Snowden when you first arrived?
I carried his snow piece all the way to the end of the game.
Me too. Yeah. And he
no idea what you're talking about.
You don't? Oh, there's a snowman, and he asked you to take, what is it? He wanted to explore, but he can't because he's a snowman, right? Yep. So he asked you to take a piece of him to the other side, right? Or to the end of the world. Was it edge of the world or something? Anyways,
like that. He just.
So, I took him all the way. So after I defeated Asgore the first time, I kind of went back and like, hey, and it started that whole chain with Undyne and all that stuff. I was like, I think I got far enough. Let me go back and talk to the snowman. And he's like, thanks, you can keep that piece of me now, thanks for taking me all the way to the end or whatever. But
I accidentally ate him in the Asgore fight. No joke. I tried to click on a cinnamon bunny and I clicked the snow thing and I ate it and it filled me to maximum health from like half. I was like, oh my God.
Oh, that's
Did you
nice.
guys what was it? The dog stuff. It was supposed to be, I think, dog poop. Did you guys have that?
Dog residue?
Dog residue?
No.
Fills your whole inventory.
No, I mean, to be honest with you, I didn't really do a lot of like the side stuff in this game. Like I kind of just railroaded through most of the game. And what I guess maybe it's not so surprising, but I was kind of surprised by it. This game is actually pretty short. There's a lot of like side and like tertiary content to this game besides the main story. So it ends up extending the playtime to being pretty long. But if you just kind of mainline the story, yeah, I was done in under 4 hours. It was a really, really quick run.
If you played Pacifist, you only got about 80-90% done anyways. You didn't even beat the game.
Right.
Nice.
Apparently so.
Did anybody did you guys use the river Styx or anything like that to get back? And no?
Nope.
The weird cat thing. Yeah. I did a lot of little extra exploring. There was
that's the weirdest boat. I'm sorry. You just sent me. I forgot all about the cat boat. Like it just.
I didn't. So here I'll kind of make a comment here. I love the soundtrack in this. This was so good. So I was actually listening to it on Spotify, and it came up with there's like 100 tracks. Now a lot of them are like those little goofy songs that play during, like that dog song, right? They're only like 30-second song, but there was what is it, like the bird that travels an unusually long amount of distance or something like that. Did you guys take that bird at all?
No.
I think it's when you first get to the Hotlands, if you go left, I think that was the spot. There's just a little bird there. In Waterfall, you can actually go to a point and you see it on the other side. But it picks you up, because I looked this up. I was like, where's this song from? I remember seeing the bird, but I never did anything with it. So I went on to YouTube. The bird just picks you up and plays this pretty epic song. And it's just very slowly just takes you over this gap and then sets you back down.
Oh, no. I did do that. That was in the waterfall area. That was Yep. Nope.
But there was also there was a door in Snowden. I couldn't figure out how to open that. I had to, after the game, I went and Googled. I'm like, did you
find the cat market? Okay,
I didn't. Where was that? The Tammy's cat?
No, not the Temmie Village, but there's a shop off to the right of the hotel. Did you go outside of the hotel?
The two cats, yeah.
There's like a cat and an alligator. They sell a random key.
Oh, okay.
So I'm assuming that's where you get it. It's a random key, and then when you ask for info about it, they're like, "Oh, it's a key to probably somebody's house." So I'm assuming.
So the door, there's I think in Snowden there's a house where there's two, like it's this weird house where it's two houses,
on,
but
they
the
look
left
like
side
of the screen.
One of them is locked. I think because that was another one. I'm like, I went back here and like again, I was like, what was this?
Oh,
what
I thought
did
that
miss?
was the house you were talking about.
No, like at the start of Snowden, there's like a little path you go down, and there's this one weird. It was one of the weird fights, right? You come across this, looked like a deer. I forget what it was called, right? Everything had these weird names and stuff too, right? The deer had like a whole bunch of like decorations on it, and the way to beat it was to take the decorations off. And it's like, oh, thanks. Now I'm not encumbered, and right, but past it, there's just a little room you could go in there with a door, and I couldn't figure out how to open it. I Googled it, and in the end credits, and this might be the pacifist ending, I don't know if it's in the neutral or genocide, the Kickstart names, the people that kickstarted the project, they all come flying in different ways, and you have your little heart, and if you dodge them if you hit any of them, they light up green or yellow, right? Because you touched them. But I was reading it, if you dodge every single one of them, which is pretty hard, that opens that door, and it's like a fun little area. Nothing too exciting, but yeah. I need to find out. You guys were talking about this at the start. I had no clue. What is this Temmie Cats thing, and where is it?
It's just a cat village.
Where was it?
You didn't go to Temmie Village?
No.
You fought one of the Temmies, right?
No. I'm gonna have to look up a video of this and where it's at, because I have it pulled up here and there's screenshots and stuff.
So if you follow like the mushroom path,
yeah.
If you go super south, like all the way down, I think it is, you can get into the Temmie area.
I never went there. But so you fight a Temmie cat?
Yeah.
Nice.
It's nice.
I think the Temmie cat fight I had was just in the regular world. It was just a random encounter.
Yep. It wasn't part of the other thing.
Yeah.
That's where if you start looking at the like Temmie Mew Mew like volume 2, it was not a good movie and all those things. So yeah, you'll have to look up the Temmie Village thing. It's pretty funny.
I'll have to look that up. Yeah.
Apparently, one of the things I did notice that I didn't end up doing this, but I thought it was really interesting that you could do it, is that you can actually entirely skip the spider boss fight.
What?
Yeah.
If you donate
donut.
if you donate a bunch to the spider bake sale, you I don't remember if you get like a note or something like that, but somebody passes along information that you bought a bunch of stuff at the spider bake sale, and you just skip the fight.
Okay, so I did buy at the first spider bake.
There's a second one.
I didn't buy the spider cider. After like 10, 12 turns or whatever, a note does come in and they say, hey, this guy's not a dick. And they're like, what?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's just how you end the fight.
Okay.
But like apparently what you can do is if you buy, I think like the 9,999 gold item or something like that, I think you just skip the fight.
How do you get that much gold? I could not get money. Like, I think the highest I ever had at one time was like 561, and I just pumped it back into healing stuff. So I don't know that I could have ever gotten.
I wonder if you,
I don't
since
know.
you did like, if you do the neutral or genocide, I wonder, do you start with all your stuff again, or is it kind of a, like,
I
do
don't
you
know.
start with your
I don't
gold
know.
or any of your items?
Don't know.
Like a game, was it new game plus type situation? But yeah, I mean, like, unless I didn't try to do this, I didn't railroad through like you did, Rich, but like I never went back to areas to see if like I encounter, like, is there any other random encounters that you'd come across?
don't
Like
know.
if you
See,
just stuck in the exploring areas. So
right. Yeah. And that's one thing I wasn't 100% sure about is that a lot of those quote random encounters didn't seem very random. It seemed very scripted. Like a lot of those random encounters were supposed to happen at that particular time anyway. At least that's that's what it looked like. Cause I remember having to go through, I think it was part of the core. I had to go through part of the core again, and I got encounters at all the exact same spots that I got before. So I was like, okay, I'm guessing a lot of these are actually just scripted, and they're supposed to be, these encounters are supposed to be here.
And you do get gear along the way, but you can't sell it.
That was the best.
Yeah, you can't
They're
sell
like, we're trying to get
anything.
rid of this junk. So like,
why are you
so
selling to me?
Yeah, I don't know how you'd get that much unless it's like they masked it out that if you hit every other monster between the start and that spider fight and you don't
didn't
go
buy
off and buying
anything.
potions
Yeah.
and stuff, maybe you have it.
Yeah,
I don't know. But
Yeah, I have no idea. It just, for me,
fun little
would have never
fact.
made it.
All those little monsters you destroy along, or you pacifist run, you save along the way. Remember how I said when you have the really good happy ending and I walked all the way back to talk to Azrael again? All those little monsters are there, and you can talk to all the village people. You can talk to all the little monsters, and they're, again, it's this super like feel good ending where they're all just like so happy, and it's just, it's weird, but yeah, they're all there in the same spots where you fought them. I think a few of the, was it like a few of them, like the kind of the more, not main like boss guys, but those like mini boss, like the two dogs. Remember the two dog knights?
The sentries.
Yeah, like
The
they're actually in
sentries.
Snowden. They're not back where you fought them, right? But
weren't they in Grizzlebees if you went there?
They were there too.
After the fight.
I remember them. They were great.
What was it? I think I took a screenshot. They're like, oh, dogs can pet other dogs.
That was my
Yeah.
Again, some of the writing.
Yeah, because you had to
it's
roll.
a whole new world.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, I don't know, like, and I mean, I think this might have been a little bit of a problem that I had with like the Borderlands series too, is that after a while, a lot of that humor just kind of like, it starts to annoy me rather than me finding it funny. Like, I did find it funny up to a certain point, and then it was just kind of like, okay, like, yeah, I get it. You're really quirky and funny and weird. Like, I got it. It kind of like beats you over the head with the weirdness of it, which isn't a bad thing. It's just not my cup of tea.
That might be why I hated Alphys so much. Like at the end of it, I was just tired of the like continuous.
Right. I mean, it was just like the amount of dialogue in the game made it
So
really,
much.
really hard to get through sometimes, just because of the amount of the sheer amount of talking and just fluff dialogue there is, especially when you do stuff with like Papyrus or Sans making jokes or Alphys being annoying or something like that. It's like
one of the probably the complaints I had with the game, and again, it's a type of game, so you can't really complain on this. It's those, you had these little stars throughout the world that were your checkpoints, right? What pissed me off is if I died at a boss fight or like a mini boss fight or whatever, right? You had to go like, was it the two dogs? Because it went through that. Was that the two dogs? You went through your puzzle that you had trouble with, Chris, and then you went through and you fought the two dogs down there. Because I think I died with them. And again, it's just the type of game it is. There was no checkpoints, right? I went back to my save at the start
because there were areas that I died on like boss fights, and it brought me right back to it. Like,
maybe it's boss fights where they were a little forgiving with checkpoints, but there was again there was like 2 or 3 times I died to not bosses, and you had to walk all the way back through. You had to go back through all these really long-winded conversations, and it was like, again, it was one of those like kind of frustrating things. I think if Alfie's was earlier in the game, it wouldn't have been bad. But yeah, I got to that point, like you were saying, Mike and Rich, where it's like by the time I got to her, I was like, okay, I get it. It's funny. I get the type of character they have.
Yeah.
It's fucking annoying. Let me get through this. Like, right? Stop calling me.
Well, like
texting me.
I thought it got really, really hilarious when they started adding in checkpoints in between long-winded conversation pieces. So like you'd have a checkpoint, you would go into a room, have like this long ass conversation to get to another checkpoint on the other side. I'm like, yeah, when you're wrapping checkpoints around like your big dialogue, like that could probably be a little bit of a problem. You know, it's just,
I feel like
just way too much.
Skip button. That's
it.
Yeah.
B sped it up. I mean, you still had to go through each screen, but instead of waiting for it to drag out. I
started spamming that button so quickly during, especially later on.
There was a lot of it where I just was just like, okay, I just don't care anymore. Just like shut the hell up, Alphys. Like, I'm just like, I don't care. I don't care.
I did read everything that Sans had to say. Like for whatever reason, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna listen to this guy.
Because he talks in Comic Sans?
Yeah, probably.
I'm gonna talk. Sorry, Chris.
I was just gonna say, the only reason I would say I struggled with this game is because there was a timeline to it that we had to get this done by a particular time. Honestly, I feel like if I revisit this game, I'll have a much higher opinion of it.
I mean, it's only like 4 hours if you just play through it.
I know.
But it seems like part of the fun. I think a lot of the fun of this game is probably doing a lot of the exploration and doing a lot of the side stuff. Because like if you mainline the story, there's not much there other than a lot of dialogue.
I wish I had a chance to explore it more.
Oh, I mean, you do. You know, there's nothing stopping you.
No, it's deleted now.
You gotta go back. And you didn't even beat the game.
What I thought was really, I mean, I think one of the things that I really, really liked about this game, though, is that it was a really good art piece. Like I can see exactly what Toby Fox was going for. You know, like he's really trying to hammer home this message of like interacting with the community and like kind of embracing flaws that you have about your various characters, and you know, you can still all be friends regardless if like you have lack of confidence or if like you're kind of in denial about, you know, your place in the community or something like that. And really at the end of the day, like not being violent is, you know, way more powerful than, you know,
you make a lot more friends along the way.
Right. Yeah. It was a really good messaging. And I think he got the point across really, really loud and clear, which I think was really well done. It was really good. What I thought was also kind of, the game is classified as an RPG, but I wouldn't even call it that. Like, I wouldn't call it an RPG. It's got a turn-based combat system, kind of. It doesn't really have a lot of RPG elements. It's got it's got attack and defense, and that's really the only stat that you ever really play with if you don't do a pacifist run.
You could still boost your defense if you're playing pacifist, because if you're equipping like the different items, you could.
Sure, I suppose. But for the most part, like this game felt a lot more like a it didn't seem really like it was being built off like an RPG, but more like a Link's Awakening. Like that's what I got way more out of it, is that it was much more of an adventure game than anything else.
I would call Link's Awakening an RPG though.
Would you?
It's a role-playing adventure game. Like I think it falls under the umbrella of like, I could take any game and call it a role-playing game.
Right.
Because you're playing a role, right?
Well, yeah.
But in this aspect, I feel like I play a lot of RPGs and I felt a lot of the similar stuff to it. So I would call both of those kind of RPG games. It's just different in, you know, how you interact with some of the stuff. Like with Zelda, it's, you know, you're running around throwing boomerangs, bombs, chopping your sword around. In this one, you're going to the turn-based combats. If you look at newer RPGs like Final Fantasy 15, things like that, their combat is no longer like that turn-based thing. It goes into more of that like action adventure-y combat with triggers. You know, things like what game am I thinking of? Like Dark Souls, I would call that an RPG as well, right? You're building a character and you're you're going through it's more story heavy than it is, a lot of these other things. Although Dark Souls has like 0 story, but that's beyond the point.
There's the combat system alone isn't enough to define it as an RPG. Like, for example, Diablo, that's not a turn-based combat system. That's a very action-oriented combat system. But I feel like what if this is considered an RPG, it is a very subversive RPG. There is a lot of stuff that it doesn't do that what a lot of, I guess you would say, normal RPGs would do. Mainly because when you do things like attacking, you're not like picking from like a set of, it's a turn-based combat system, but you're not really picking through like a set of like attacks or moves or heals or anything like that. You don't really have a party. You don't have, as far as like the levels are concerned, you're more so punished for, or you're shamed for leveling up, so to speak. And
right. It's like a reverse RPG in those manners.
Kind of. Yeah. That's why just like I have a hard time classifying this as an RPG, and I see it more as like an adventure game.
I feel like what you're classifying is more towards the JRPG, like the old school Japanese RPG style is maybe what you're, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's kind of where your brain's at is, like a Final Fantasy VII before the remake, or like
kind of, because I'm also thinking about Western RPGs and things like Dark Souls and Diablo and the likes like that. They all kind of share they share similarities with JRPGs just by the nature of being RPGs,
right?
Then again, I don't really classify any of the Zelda games as really an RPG. I see that as more of like
action adventure,
kind of just more of an adventure game, so to speak. And I felt like that's what this is more of. It's very linear, but like it definitely feels like more of a Zelda than a Final Fantasy, even though it has a turn-based combat system. But it also has like bullet hell mechanics and very mechanically intensive gameplay when you factor in the combat and all that. So I don't know, like it was a really interesting thing to think about, because it was just, I guess, going back to it, how do you go and define an RPG? But like I said, this one is very subversive to a lot of RPG tropes, and that it's trying to do that on purpose.
I felt like a lot of
combat RPG.
I felt like, kind of to your point earlier, this might have been a game where he developed it more like an adventure without the combat, or the combat maybe was there in the first place to drive home that that kind of moral point, like you were talking about, like, hey, be nice, don't have to kill everything, right, except right, all that's like to kind of drive that point home. Because I was a little worried whenever Mike was making fun, like, we're going to make Matt play a real RPG, right? And I'm like,
this is an RPG light if you're looking at it.
Yeah.
And to your point too, at least as far as from the attacking, you didn't really have an option of picking what it was, but the acting was probably more where you had different attacks, right? It was more figuring out what do you say to whatever. It varied by monster, right? The one deer thing was take shit off of it, and then it's like, hey, cool, we're friends, I don't want to kill you, right?
It's kind of like Dungeons and Dragons.
I was just gonna say it's a very almost pen and papery RPG than a video game RPG, because it is about interacting with the world and understanding your place in it over just being aggressive.
And I think that's the like key point to a good RPG is, storytelling in the world, not necessarily like, I don't get me wrong, mechanics and like fights and stuff like that drive me crazy nowadays. But so, having that backbone of a really good story and the interactions that you have, I think that's, what makes the RPG a good RPG when you do play them. So.
Right. Like KOTOR wouldn't be KOTOR without the heavy story element that it had, alongside of being, like a top-notch RPG elements, like, managing equipment and resources and all sorts of things like that. I guess you could say this is a lot more of a light version of an RPG, like an RPG in the most barest of sense.
Grr.
There it is.
So I only experienced this because Mike posted on our, what was that, Slack? No, it was Twitter. You tweeted about it. dog thing, the Doge thing. And I was like, because I went into that room, I was like, I'll come back to this later. And then you posted about it. I went in there and I played that slot. So in Sans and Papyrus's house, if you walk up to the fridge, there's a dog in there eating a bone, and he tells it to go away. But you can go into a room back there, and you can buy. Was it just
Dog
coins
coin.
or was it dog
coins?
It
was dog coin. You could
dog
buy
coins.
dog coin.
Did
and
you
play the slot machine with it?
Did you win everything?
Oh yeah, I played it all the way to the end of it. I have 100% achievement the game.
Yeah, it honestly didn't take me long to beat because I got annoyed trying to time the slot machine.
So you just start mashing
I just
it.
kept doing it, and I kept getting dog, or what was it? There's 2 or 3 I kept getting that gave you like 75 and 150, and twice I got the 3 dogs, which gave you like 300 or 400. So yeah, I mean, 20 minutes of my time to go in there and earn all the dog coin and buy all the prizes. It was fun little.
My kid was watching me play that section. He got super bored. He's like, "Why are you still doing this?" I was like, "Because I need the rest of these to go through.
Gotta get those Dogecoin.
Gotta get that dog coin going."
To the moon.
Yep. There's like a little dog waiter in there, and they all kind of had like that Shiba look to them too. So it was just, I really wonder if that was something that fit in there. So
was it Sans was even in there with was it a blackjack table, and he wanted you to play, but the blackjack table was like super high, and he's like, "Well, I guess you can't play." But
so what are your thoughts? Recommend the book to others or not so much?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think there was a lot about this game that really wasn't my cup of tea, but I do think it was a very well-made game. There's a lot of content here. I mean, but despite the, roughly 4 hours that I played to beat almost, I guess, beat the.
I just didn't beat the game.
I mean, I saw credits, so
I did.
I saw credits. But besides that, I mean, I think it's definitely worth a play. At least one playthrough.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good game. It's got a really well done story. I kind of wish I had more chance to kind of just explore through it and push it a little bit further. I mean, I'll probably do it eventually, though my backlog is getting bigger. So who knows when I'll have time to do it. But yeah, no, definitely I recommend.
I really enjoyed the story. As I mentioned, the soundtrack I thought was pretty awesome. It was just a fun adventure. I obviously got frustrated at the boss battles. I would highly recommend the game to people, even if they're like, "That's not my, I hate that stuff." Go look up. There's no shame in looking up guides, right?
Yes, sir.
That's the only reason you beat the game, Matt.
The 2 or 3 bosses I did it with. Yes,
you sold your soul to Prima.
But the adventure, the story, and the rest of the fun I had along the way was, again, I enjoyed 98% of this. Again, there was a couple of those boss battles that I got super pissed at because they were hard to figure out. And then kind of to Chris's point, I was like, okay, don't want to sit here for 2 hours trying to figure out this boss battle. I'm going to go look it up. And again, it was still challenging afterwards, because you still had to work your way through like that the spider one. There was 17 times you had to get through that. Well, to make sure I had enough health potions and dodged, right. So it was still a challenge, but I'd say there's no shame in doing that for the bosses and just going through the rest of the game and enjoying it. It was a good story. If you do the pacifist run, go back after you beat Flowey and actually beat the game. I recommend going back and talking to Azrael before you after you finish that last bit and you go through the lab and everything. Go back and talk to Azrael. It's a fun little conversation. Again, kind of the richest point and something that I'm not really good at articulating. I think there was a little bit of a message in this story too about determination, forgiveness, and all that fun stuff. So people are much smarter than me seeing that in the game. Maybe you'll see it, maybe it'll kind of mean something to you, but yeah, it was fun. I'd highly recommend it.
So just a quick little fun note about Matt's best friend Azrael. If you take his first and last name, Azrael Dreamer, with the way it's spelled, and rearrange the letters on it, it actually is serial murderer, somebody found out. I don't know if that's, an on purpose deal, but if it is, that's a pretty neat little like throwback, because he kind of did want to just murder everybody at some point. So
Yeah, but cereal? I mean,
if he kills more than one.
I forgot to ask. I mean, yeah, you're the
people.
7th. They've killed 6 other kids before you.
Yeah.
7 if you count.
yeah, but if it wasn't all him.
Did you guys
Was it?
before going into the throne room with Asgore, did you guys go past the door and go down the stairs?
Yeah,
Yes.
right, with all the coffins.
Yeah, the coffins.
Yeah.
No, I
It had
missed
your
that.
name on it.
You had,
and it was like,
you had
Yeah.
one coffin with your name on it.
Oh
Yep.
God.
Yeah,
That's pretty
A
funny.
little morbid, but I liked it. I thought it was
Yep.
funny.
it's a good time.
Cool.
I don't think I have
Well,
anything else.
No,
might
I mean, I
have more
think,
notes.
yeah, you're right, Matt. The soundtrack in this game is actually really
It is
good.
pretty fantastic.
Like the core, the music for the core. Oh, I for some reason it's been stuck in my head like all day today.
It's out on Spotify. There's like 100 tracks to it. Again, there's a lot of like those like 20. There was even like some 10-second songs, right? Some of those just like the elevator. Can you call it music? The little right? Like that's on there. But I actually took the time to trim out like a lot of the filler tracks, and yeah, just have like a 50-track soundtrack of just a lot of the major songs or boss battles. Pretty killer soundtrack.
I didn't really notice the music until the boss battles. Like I didn't get a lot of the background stuff, but I thought that the spider boss, I thought that you actually had to do it to the beat, because it was like the little spiders dance along. I was like, oh, is this to the beat of the, like I turned it up and I was like, nope, it is not to the beat of the music.
I mean, some of the attacks, I guess, kind of have a beat to it. I don't know, but probably not
More
directly
timing
with the
than
music.
beat.
Yeah.
I noticed the music as soon as I got a copyright claim on my stream. That's a pretty quick way for me to find out about it.
Like a good YouTuber.
Mhm.
Yep.
Good stuff. So next up is Chris's pick. We'll be playing Metro 2033 Redux. So if you're interested to play along, go pick that up. You can find it on most generations of console or PC. So check that out. While you're there looking for that game, check out our website, campfiregamingpodcast.com. From there, you can get on to our Discord. Twitter's Camp Game Pod, and our Instagram is at Campfire Gaming Podcast. We do have a Twitch account. We've got a YouTube account as well. Those are just Campfire Gaming Podcast. And check out Matt and Chris while they stream. Chris is Zomproof. Matt is Sergeant Massimo, and you can find them on the Twitch, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Yep,
definitely.
Lots of Phasmophobia to be played.
Tons of Phasmo.
Chris streams a lot more than me, but yeah, a lot of Phasma. But we did Valheim the other week.
Mm-hmm.
Got a few other games coming up. I think we're gonna.
I should probably play the game that I bought. Like, I've played Phasmo. I like Valheim is just sitting there.
I think like 90% of my. I think like 90% of my Steam library is just bought off like humble bundles and stuff like that. So
we have a dragon to kill.
Yeah,
in Valheim.
Yeah, that'll be coming up here pretty soon. We got to get that scheduled.
Yeah, if we could schedule it, maybe I can jump in. That'd be nice.
Yeah, maybe one night
just pick a time. We're pretty much ready to go. I have all the stuff prepared to just go do it.
Same here.
Well, keep an eye on our Twitter and our Twitch stream. We will probably have that sometime soon. Get a live dragon fight with the Campfire crew. We ain't afraid of no fire. Unless it's like an acid dragon, then I don't know
frost.
It's a frost dragon.
It's like the opposite of what we're good at.
So it's like ice fire.
Yeah.
Ooh. Is that like icy hot?
You can still say
our muscles are gonna feel great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The dragon breathes Bengay.
Just good food raw, and should bring it right back down.
The smell will get you alone. And with that, thanks for hanging out, everybody. We'll see you next time around the campfire.